The Galactic Orion Council convened in polished obsidian towers that floated above the clouds of Thraxis Prime, a planet older than most stars. Delegates from 100 advanced civilizations, feathered, scaled, silicon-skinned, spoke in cold unison, discussing another disciplinary action. The subject, Earth. A persistent nuisance, hissed High Executor Ralvox of the Thalrex Dominion, his 4 jaws clicking. The Terrans refuse to sign the extraction charter. They hoard their gravity wells, their oceanic methane stores, and insult our envoys with sarcasm. Murmurs echoed in the chamber. They've refused tribute, added Councillor Vreen, her eye stalks twitching. And they dared to mock the Primarch of Retculus on open broadcast. They said his crown looked like a toilet brush. Laughter fluttered briefly, nervous and unsure. They've broken protocol, Ralvox said coldly. They think distance protects them. It's time they learn what happens to insolent primitives. A vote passed without opposition. Earth was to be corrected. 3 weeks later, the Thalrex flagship Devourer of Suns slipped into Sol's orbit, flanked by a fleet of 300 warships. Gleaming, cruel, and cloaked in shimmering distortion fields, they radiated power like a divine judgment. Cities across Earth scrambled as every screen, device, and satellite was hijacked by a single broadcast. A monstrous figure appeared. Ralvox, eyes glowing like furnace coals. Attention, Terran species. You have violated galactic order. Your sovereignty is revoked. Kneel or burn. You have 24 of your planetary hours. The feed cut. No reply came. No panic. No pleas. Just silence. Ralvox sneered in the command bridge. Spineless vermin. They can't even beg properly. 18 hours. Later, something unexpected happened, a signal. Barely a blip on the Thalrex command net. Not a video, not even a face. Just a single line of text, translated into every galactic language. We were quiet out of courtesy, not weakness. Ralvox blinked. Where did it come from? Unknown. Executor, the sensor officer replied. Signal originated beyond the outer planets. Some kind of quantum piggyback. Untraceable. Then Earth vanished from the fleet's sensors. No, not the planet, just every satellite, data node, transmission link. It was as if Earth had gone dark. Willingly. Ralvox snarled. They're bluffing. Begin the approach. 6 ships moved. Toward Earth orbit in formation. Standard planetary intimidation. Civilians ran. Government scrambled jets useless against starborn weapons. And yet, nothing happened. No retaliation. No defense. Until one of the Thalrex warships, Talons, Wrath, stopped, not slowed. Stopped mid-flight, hanging in space like a dead thing. The others turned to assist. Too late. With no warning, Talon's Wrath folded inward, collapsing like a deflated balloon. No explosion. No wreckage. Just gone. Quantum implosion? One officer gasped. No weapons fired, Executor, shouted the tactical AI. There's no thermal trail, no energy discharge. Wait, something's... Another ship winked out. Then a third. The fleet began to maneuver defensively, scanning wildly. Still nothing on sensors. The Executor's voice roared over the internal channel. Where is the attack coming from? That's when a shadow passed across the fleet. A shape, huge, jagged, utterly black, slid between Jupiter and the sun, but it wasn't visible. Not to the eye. It was felt. Space around it rippled unnaturally as if time itself buckled in its wake. Just for a second, a single message appeared across every Thalrex screen. In red letters, old Terran text, Strike Fleet Obsidian, now online, and then a nothing. The shadow was gone. The Earth remained untouched. But Ralvox knew in his second heart that something ancient had awakened. Something patient. Something human. Beyond Neptune's icy orbit, where even sunlight grew timid, a cold silence held court. Nothing stirred in that abyss. At least nothing anyone knew about. Deep within the Oort cloud, in a zone long thought empty, a constellation of matte black. Constructs pulsed to life. They resembled no known ship class, no visible engines, no thermal signatures, no hull markings. Just monolithic, jagged silhouettes orbiting one another with impossible precision. These were not colonies, not research, outposts. They were hives. At the heart of the formation, buried inside the largest of the black ships, Erebus Prime, Admiral Rhea Maddox opened her eyes. She had been in stasis for 7 years. Her pod hissed open, thick vapor coiling from her armor-clad form. Nanites swarmed over her skin, checking, vitals syncing combat data. Her first breath came slow but sharp. Maddox didn't blink. She remembered everything. The simulations. The waiting. The long silence. She turned to the command AI, a low voice in the darkness. Confirm enemy presence in Sol orbit. Confirmed. Thalrex formation at 60% combat saturation. Initial probe units destroyed. Did we speak to them? Yes. Response was predictable. Threat level. Arrogant. Maddox nodded once. She glanced at the fleet hologram in front of her. 97 ships, all silent, all cloaked. But these were not ships in the conventional sense. Their hulls weren't built. They were grown from dark matter lattice fields. Their drives didn't burn fuel. They folded quantum friction into negative space corridors, slipping past gravity like oil through cloth. To the rest of the galaxy they were theoretical, myth, impossible. To Earth, they were insurance. Bring. Obsidian online, she said, stepping toward the bridge. Around her, lights ignited in pulses of red and violet. The floor hummed, but made no sound. Bulkheads adjusted to her posture. An ancient rhythm, forgotten since the first Mars revolt, came, flooding back. Open interlink with Fleet Alpha. Prep 0-point launch protocols. Acknowledged. Launch vectors calculated, refractive distortion engaged. She paused, then added, make it visible, just for a moment. The AI hesitated. Visible? That contradicts all stealth protocols. That's the point, Maddox said coldly. They think we're bluffing. Across the void, in Earth's high atmosphere, a shimmering rift opened like torn silk. For precisely 4.2 seconds, a shape larger than Manhattan loomed in view. Darker than space, sharper than thought, it hung there, impossibly silent, unmoving, unblinking. Then it vanished. Back aboard the Devourer of Suns, Executor Ralvox was screaming. What was that? A cloaked vessel? A projection? No energy. Profile, replied his science officer. It bent local gravity like a neutron star but left no damage. It's wrong, Executor. The numbers don't make sense. He turned toward his war council. This is no bluff. Earth possesses post-singularity technology. Weapons that bypass mass, shields, reality itself. Someone whispered. They were supposed to be primitive. Back on Erebus Prime, Maddox stood at full command now. Her captains appeared one by one in holoform. Lieutenant Osei of the Penumbra Blade, Commander Vera from Nocturne 6, and old bitter Captain Trask, her most dangerous weapon. All units online, said Trask. Darkfield. Stable. Target list confirmed, high-value Thalrex war stations marked. Orders? Maddox stared into the void. They came to our home. They threatened extinction. Again. Osei grinned. Same song, new verse. Maddox said it without emotion. Initiate. The Nightfall Protocol. One by one, the black ships shimmered, bent, and slipped sideways out of existence, vanishing into threads of warped space, faster than any known warp signature. No flash, no pulse. Just the ripple of unnatural physics, twisting into silence. Their destination, Thalrex territory. They wouldn't attack head-on. That was for amateurs. The dark matter fleet didn't believe in honorable fights. They would cut out the heart. They would erase memory banks, dissolve Starforge reactors, collapse databanks into singularities. And when the galaxy asked what happened, it would hear only whispers. about shadows, about vengeance, about the day Earth stopped being polite. The Thalrex High Command was in chaos. Across the core systems of the Dominion, command stations blinked out one by one. No alarms, no warning. Just dark screens, dead comms, and a sick, cold silence where once there had been bustling signals of absolute control. Aboard the Crown of Jurul, the largest Thalrex military fortress orbiting the binary suns of Delkari, Warlord Ankar Vrel watched helplessly as 3 of his outer colonies disappeared from the command map. He didn't mean lost contact. He meant disappeared, coordinates, scrubbed, gravitational signatures gone, their planetary mass folded into nothing. "What are we fighting?" he hissed, turning to his aides. "Unknown, Warlord," replied his chief tactician, her mandibles trembling. "Some survivors speak of black ships, no visible thrusters, no heat signatures. One reported a weapon that turned his ship inside out. That was no translation error. One ship had been pulled through a microscopic gravity inversion and left floating in shattered geometries. No fire, no debris. Just a warped origami corpse of what once had been a battle cruiser. They called themselves the Dark Matter Fleet, and they never appeared on scanners. They would arrive at lightless moons, slip through crusts of ice like vapor, and destroy only the central intelligence cores. Entire fleets would awaken to find their guidance AI missing, like the brain scooped from a skull. In other cases, they didn't destroy anything. They reprogrammed. Entire orbital defense arrays turned inward and fired on their own planets. Thalrex. Transmission logs were flooded with scrambled Earth standard code. Ancient Earth memes, jokes, song lyrics. But interwoven between them were military decryptions, subtle threats, and most unnerving of all, live feeds of Earth's cities, peaceful and untouched. On the outer rim, the Thalrex colony of Var, known for producing starship fuel, woke to find its entire moon orbit altered. It had been nudged precisely into a decay path that would destabilize the colony's tides within weeks. No explosion, no invasion, just mathematics. A single Earth message broadcast across the colony's mainframe. "We are not conquerors. We are your reflection. If you'd evolved rage instead of ego." Then the moon fell silent. Back in the Sol system, Executor Ralvox sat in his ship's war chamber, now dim with fear. Around him, reports scrolled faster than he could read them. Thalrex Fleet Group. Sigma, Lost Wormhole Nexus 9. Compromised neural AI linked to Baron Forge, overwritten by unknown quantum code. "They're dismantling our empire," he whispered, stunned. One of his lieutenants approached. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission, no source, just audio." Ralvox narrowed his eyes. "Play it." It was a woman's voice. Calm, cold, perfectly enunciated Terran standard. "This is Admiral Rhea Maddox of Strike Fleet Obsidian. You brought death to our doorstep. You assumed our silence meant fear. You thought we were too fractured, too slow, too emotional. You were correct about one thing. We are emotional. And right now, we are furious. Prepare yourselves. You will not see us coming. You will only know we were there, after you're gone." The transmission ended. No music. No threats of annihilation. Just fact. A simple, human fact. Somewhere between stars, in the void where even light grew tired, Nocturne 6 emerged from a pocket of folded space. Commander Vera adjusted her neural interface, 1,000 data streams fluttering past her eyes. Targets marked. Thalrex relay satellite ahead. Shielded, armed, guarded by 3 cruisers. She blinked once. Deploy Wraith mines. A dozen black shards detached from the hull and drifted toward the Thalrex ships, perfectly silent. They were not traditional explosives. They consumed data. Personal memories, logs, systems, entire libraries of thought, scrubbed from existence. It was as if the ships had forgotten how to be ships. Moments later, the relay and its guardians simply floated, inert, functionless. The crew never even screamed. Back at Erebus Prime, Admiral Maddox stood alone in the observation spire. Through the thick, transparent alloy, she watched Earth gleam in the distance, quiet, vibrant, unaware of the silent war being waged in its name. She knew the Council would soon take notice. She knew others would ask who gave humanity the right, but she also knew the rules had changed. No one owns the stars anymore, she thought, least of all the bullies. The grand chamber of the Galactic Orion Council hadn't seen this much unrest in 10,000 cycles. Delegates shouted over one another in overlapping frequencies. Winged envoys from the Vathil screeched in harmonic distress. The crystalline Myralites dimmed their internal lights, a cultural sign of mourning. Even the normally unreadable hive of Elt spun its translator sphere wildly, blurting nonsense in 17 dialects. All focus was on one shimmering display at the center of the chamber, a holographic map of the Thalrex dominion, flickering and broken. Over 24 stars, once marked with the crimson glyphs of control, were now darkened. Worse, their data was missing. No transit logs, no AI routing info, not even gravity field telemetry. Just blank entries, like someone had erased the systems from reality itself. "This is not a war," said High Speaker Laren of the Vathil, her four wings quivering. "It is annihilation. The humans are using forbidden technology," rumbled Grontor, the iron-voiced sentinel from the Forgeborn dynasty. "They've weaponized dark matter, quantum decoherence, things the Accord of 09 strictly bans." "They were not part of the Accord," hissed Councillor Vreen, the Thalrex ambassador, pale and visibly shaken. "We never gave them the invitation. They were insignificant. And now," Lyran snapped, "they are rewriting galactic order." A quiet voice floated through the chamber, deep, emotionless, ancient, the speaker of the Watchers. "We let the bullies run free," it said. "We laughed when Earth refused to bow. We watched as the Thalrex raised moons, enforced resource charters, punished any deviation. Now Earth answers not with requests but with silence and erasure." "What would you have us do?" demanded Vreen. "Beg for mercy?" The speaker's crystal eyes pulsed once. "I would advise you to listen." Back on Erebus Prime, Admiral Maddox stood before a viewing window as the final data packets from the strike on Thalrex Core Node 7 streamed in. "Results?" she asked. Captain Trask smirked, arms crossed. "No resistance. Their deep AI subnet tried to counterhack. It imploded under quantum stress. They used predictive logic against us." He chuckled. "Cute. It's like throwing algebra at a hurricane." Maddox nodded slowly. "Any retaliation?" Trask shook his head. "They're too afraid to trace us. Every time they try, we feed them another hallucination. Constructs of cities that don't exist, ships that scream like stars, children singing in reverse time signatures." Maddox raised an eyebrow. "Too far." Trask shrugged. "Psychops wanted a message." "And what message is that?" He grinned. "Earth's not prey. Earth's the trap." Meanwhile, in a darkened datasphere orbiting the gas giant Nuyek 3, a conclave of shadowed figures conferred. Not counselors, not Thalrex. Something older. The archivists, beings who observed but never intervened, who remembered every war, every extinction, every first contact, and for the first time in millennia, they were afraid. "They've gone too far," whispered one, voice flat. "Humanity wasn't supposed to survive planetary adolescence. Not after the second solar skirmish, not after their AI collapse. They adapted," said another. "They went dark. Built in silence, they fooled every sensor array, every diplomatic probe. While we monitored for lasers and nukes, they moved into dimensions we barely understand. Their dark matter fleet is just the surface," murmured a third. "Their real strength is psychological, strategic. They studied us long before we noticed them." A pause. Then the first archivist spoke again. "What do we do?" No one answered. There was nothing they could do. In a quiet observatory on Earth, underground, hidden beneath the Andes, an old man stood watching the stars through a telescope he didn't need. He was one of the founders. One of the minds behind Project Obsidian. He sipped lukewarm coffee, watched data scroll by on holographic glass, and whispered to no one in particular. "We told them. We told them we just wanted to be left alone. He shook his head as a new file pinged in. Another system gone dark in Thalrex space. Now they'll finally understand what happens when you back a clever species into a corner. He tapped the screen once. Activate contingency orbit, let them see us. Out past Saturn, the veil lifted for exactly 8 seconds. The entire Obsidian fleet decloaked, spanning thousands of kilometers. Black hulls shimmered with the stars, behind them seemingly made of shadow itself. No insignias, no threat broadcasts, just silence. And then they vanished again. Across the galaxy, panic bloomed. Because now everyone knew Earth wasn't just fighting back. Earth had become the most terrifying thing in the galaxy, an enemy that didn't want conquest and only to be left alone. The diplomatic carrier Saravan, flagship of the Myralite Confederation, slid into high orbit over the neutral moon of Wrestle. What had once been a quiet sanctuary for peace talks now thrummed with tension. Inside its dome of psionic shielding, envoys gathered. Not just diplomats this time, but spies, warlords, and exiled sovereigns. Dozens of factions had arrived unannounced, some flying flags they hadn't unfurled in centuries. At the center of the marble-lit chamber stood Envoy Cassian Rule, Earth's only official representative. No armor, no fleet behind him. Just a man in a tailored, non-threatening synthweave suit and calm eyes. He wasn't here to beg. He was here to explain. "You've all seen the results," he said, voice steady. Thalrex command nodes collapsed. Entire battle fleets rendered inert. No civilian centers touched. No mass loss of life. Some delegates nodded, grudgingly. Others narrowed their eyes. Rule paced slowly. Earth had no choice. When the Thalrex entered Sol without invitation, when they fired on our science vessel and threatened population centers, we didn't retaliate out of vengeance. We responded strategically. Councillor Goran of the Hydrax Enclave spoke, his gill slits flaring. "Strategic? You erased entire colonies from the record. We don't even know what used to be in Quadrant 31B anymore." Rule paused. "Yes, that was intentional. You see, we could have wiped out cities, atmospheres, suns. We didn't. We erased command memory. The Thalrex still have soldiers, ships, but now they lack the coordination to use them." The Vathil representative clicked its mandibles. "You fight like ghosts." Rule gave a small smile. "No, we fight like humans who've learned what happens when we don't get ahead of the next bully." Far away, in a dimly lit chamber aboard, the gutted wreck of a Thalrex command cruiser, Executor Ralvox screamed into a scrambled data relay. "This is treachery. The Council should have intervened. The Myralites are negotiating with Earth." A tired aide replied, "Sir, multiple factions are defecting. The Zarnix Guild has opened a trade channel to the humans. The Zyrixi have offered them sanctuary planets, even the Raylak Horde. The Raylak are pirates. They're pirates who don't want to be deleted." Ralvox slammed his fist against the projection tank. "We are the dominant force in this galaxy." "We're, sir." Silence deafening. Ralvox leaned forward, breath ragged. "Contact the archivists. Offer them anything. We need an edge." Back on Erebus Prime, Admiral Maddox was reviewing the new intelligence streams. Her face remained unreadable as a report flashed in. "Zyrixi High Council offers permanent Earth embassy rights." She turned to Captain Vera, who had just returned from a subspace incursion near the Cradle Stars. "Your thoughts?" Vera was direct. "They're scared. We've shattered the myth of Thalrex invincibility. Everyone assumed humans were still crawling through adolescence. Now they see our shadow. Fleets are non-local weapon logic. They want to survive." Maddox looked at the map, where once hostile territories had begun shifting from red to gray. Neutral. Hesitant. "They won't ally with us," she said. "Not truly." "No," Vera agreed. "But they'll stay out of our way." On the edge of the Vesh binary cluster, the Raylak Horde gathered in silent orbit. Their monstrous war cruisers, built from salvaged debris and starforged metal, hung in dark formation. Their leader, Warlord Tav Zeka, stood with a human-shaped shadow beside him. "We fought Earth once," Zeka growled. Back in the broken, belt conflict. Thought they were soft. They weren't. The shadow nodded. A human operative, no name, no record. His voice was a low rasp. You want access to obsidian black drives, cloaking fields, anti-predictive strike patterns. Zeka grinned. And Earth wants? Nothing, the man said simply. Just your silence. Your absence in upcoming engagements. The pirate lord laughed. A deal with ghosts. I like it. They shook hands. The stars shifted. Another piece fell into place. Meanwhile, Thalrex systems continued to collapse. Entire sectors fell not to fire but to inactivity. Ships too paranoid to launch. Officers too unsure to issue commands. Command relays infected with recursive logic loops that looped battlefield orders into children's lullabies and earth poetry. Fear did what bullets never could. And in the shadows of every system, cloaked in silence, Earth's dark matter fleet watched. And in her command chamber, Rhea Maddox whispered to herself, "They thought we wanted revenge. They didn't understand. We only wanted one thing. Never again." Verelian Prime had never fallen. Not in 5,000 cycles. Not during the Hive Wars. Not during the Zenth Plague. Not even during the rogue AI uprising that swallowed 9 civilizations. It was the heart of the Thalrex Dominion. The Jewel. A fortress world wrapped in a shell of artificial moons, each one bristling with rail cannons, matter inversion fields, and hyperdense defense satellites. But when the Earth fleet came, there was no siege. There were no announcements, no demands, just silence, and then ruin. From orbit, the planet looked normal, until you noticed the moons. Not destroyed, not cracked or broken, just turned. Each moon had been reoriented with surgical precision, blocking the planet's own defense grid. The rail cannons aimed inward now. Orbital traffic routes were tangled with invisible interference. Civilian comms were still active, but the military grid was mute. One by one, Verelian's command centers lost power. And then came the Mirage ships, flickering outlines that danced at the edge of sensor range. Some Thalrex captains fired instinctively, but they hit nothing. Phantoms of dark matter hulls bleeding partial images across dimensions. Every shot wasted only revealed how blind they truly were. Inside the high citadel, Warlord Ankar Vrel stood, with his command staff trembling. "This is an illusion," he snarled. "A psychological trick. Find the source, shut it down." But his analysts, once confident in Thalrex supremacy, were already surrendering to dread. "Sir," said one, "we're detecting spatial contradictions, rooms that do not physically exist, hallways leading into themselves. We believe the humans have warped local structure." Vrel turned sharply. "They're folding space?" "No, sir," another officer whispered. "They're folding us." 300 kilometers above the citadel, the ENS Revenant stood still in space. Its silhouette didn't shimmer like other ships. It devoured light. Even stars bent slightly around it. On the bridge, Admiral Maddox reviewed the feed. Real-time, footage showed Thalrex cruisers slowly drifting, their engines stuttering, their AIs flooding with contradictory math. She turned to her tactical officer. "Deploy Legion protocol." The officer hesitated. "That's a kill switch, ma'am." Maddox's voice was calm. "They won't back down. This ends today." A nod. A code entered. Legion protocol engaged. Inside Verelian's orbital defense net, every single military AI activated simultaneously, not by Thalrex command, but by Earth's override signal. For 6.2 seconds, every Thalrex system functioned flawlessly. Better than ever, in fact. Then came the inversion. Ships turned on one another. Gun platforms performed orbital ballet before slamming into moon stations. Entire regiments of drone soldiers opened fire on their own command towers. It was perfect chaos. Ankar Vrel watched as the citadel's outer dome cracked. Massive plumes of gas burst skyward. One of the artificial moons disintegrated, not from an impact but because its materials had been restructured mid-orbit into dust. And then came the voice. A whisper on every frequency. Unmistakably human. "You invaded Earth," You executed our diplomats. You fired on cities we hadn't finished rebuilding. We warned you. This is not genocide. This is correction. Vrel fell to his knees. Not because he had been shot, not because he was afraid to die, but because, for the first time in his long, violent life, he believed he was no longer a predator. He was prey. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the ripple of Virelion's fall shattered the political game board. At the core of the Galactic Council, dozens of members withdrew their support from the Thalrex. Treaties were voided. Alliances crumbled. Some factions even pledged loyalty to Earth, not out of trust but out of sheer terror. The Myralites offered their entire star chart archives. The Xyrixi transferred wormhole jump tech. Even the paranoid Polari opened trade routes in exchange for non-interference guarantees. The message was clear. Earth wasn't asking to be included. They were forcing a new status quo. On Erebus Prime, a silence hung over the war chamber. Admiral Maddox stood alone, watching Virelion's final orbit collapse on a loop, not cheering, not smiling, just watching. She tapped a control. A new transmission was encoded. Destination, the Watchers. Phase 1. Complete. The bullies have been silenced. You always wondered what humanity would do with peace. Now you'll see what we do with power. She stepped away. The stars outside blinked once, like they were afraid to look directly at her fleet. Beneath the ice-crusted world of Velkthera, hidden within gravitational eddies no natural object should survive, the Watchers stirred. For eons, they had observed the galaxy. They were not rulers, not invaders, just quiet custodians of balance, stepping in only when chaos grew loud enough to wake them. They had watched species rise, burn, and vanish. They had watched Earth, primitive, fractured, self-devouring, until Earth vanished from their sensors entirely. That alone should have alarmed them. But it hadn't. Not until now. Now. Earth was back, and it had torn the sky in half. At the edge of the Velkthera array, a sphere of condensed vacuum unraveled. An obsidian probe slipped through, its presence bending physics slightly off-key. The Watchers reacted immediately, their thought forms converging in perfect synchronization, each one a trillion-node gestalt of ancient intellect. They've found us. Not found. Chosen to be seen. This changes protocol. Agreed, we respond. Within minutes, 3 Archons of the Watchers projected into real space. They took no physical form, only radiance and gravity, living math bound in spectral veils. They launched toward Sol. The galaxy held its breath. On Erebus Prime, the alert registered instantly. 3 unknown objects moving through folds of space. Not ships, but something older. Maddox stared at the data stream. Watchers, she muttered. Captain Vera stepped beside her, eyes wide. They never intervene. They do now. She tapped into the diplomatic cortex. Contact Cassian Ruel. Prepare the spiral bridge. We'll meet them halfway. In the borderless void above the dead system of Elendras, Earth's envoy Cassian Ruel stood alone on a gleaming obsidian platform. No ship surrounded him, just a soft gravity field and a halo of encrypted quantum particles that masked the presence of an entire fleet hidden in folded space. Across from him, the Watchers appeared. Not solid, not visible in a conventional sense. Ruel felt them first as pressure in his thoughts, gravity that pulled sideways, light that bent into impossible angles. He straightened his spine and did what few dared. He spoke first. You ignored Earth's petitions for protection, he said. You watched the Thalrex burn our cities, enslave our colonies. You archived it, categorized it. A ripple passed through the void. One of the Watchers responded. Not in sound, but in comprehension. You were not ready. Conflict teaches resilience. Ruel didn't flinch. And now we've surpassed you. Now you are dangerous. Ruel smiled faintly. You're afraid? We do not fear. We balance. Ruel's eyes narrowed. Then balance this. Earth will not stand down. We are done asking for peace. From this point forward, any hand raised against us will be broken at the wrist. The void shimmered again. Silence. Measured thought. You risk destabilizing the galactic equilibrium. Rule stepped forward, the lights of hidden warships glittering behind him. It was never stable. You just weren't paying attention. Back on Erebus Prime, the conversation streamed in real time. Maddox watched as the Watchers pulsed their final response. Then they vanished, folding away into gravitational silence. Vera leaned in. They're not going to stop us. No, Maddox said. They're going to watch again. Because they understand now. We're not building an empire. Turn to the stars beyond. We're building deterrence. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the ruins of Thalrek's worlds fell quiet. One by one, they were left behind. Not conquered, but emptied of command. But Earth didn't stay to rule. Instead, they moved on. Dark matter fleets slipped through space like ghosts, dismantling war factories, deconstructing signal towers, scattering power nexuses into stardust. In their wake, they left only stillness. Some civilizations cheered, others trembled. And some, those who still whispered of power, plotted. Within a hollow asteroid cloaked in antimatter dust, the last true Thalrek's warlords gathered in secret. Warlord, Shirkal, once admiral of the 5th Dominion Armada, slammed his fist on the metal table. Earth is undoing our legacy, he growled. Not just killing, erasing. We must respond. Another nodded. There's one option left. The forbidden. Relics from the Ether Vault, the pre-Watcher weapons. Those violate galactic law, a third hissed. There is no law, Shirkal snarled. Only who writes it in blood. A silence fell. They would unleash something ancient, and Earth would have to answer again. Back in Sol, beneath the moons. Surface, a chamber flickered to life. 7 figures stood in a circle, founders of Project Obsidian. One of them, older than record should allow, tapped a control panel etched in alien runes. A single phrase lit the display, primordial response. Stand by. The relic activated in silence. No fanfare, no warning. Deep within the crust of the ancient warworld Dravak Null, the Thalrek's warlords fed forbidden coordinates into an artifact older than recorded time. Unearthed from the shattered ether vaults, sealed. Even before the Watchers took shape, the primordial engine stirred and the stars blinked. Across 50 light-years, quantum tremors rippled through space-time like ripples across a black sea. Entire sensor networks crashed. Navigation arrays began listing celestial bodies that no longer existed, and in the heart of Erebus Prime, every warning system screamed the same message. Causality breach detected. Event origin. Dravak Null. Unknown force approaching Sol in Fori. Hours, 12 minutes. Admiral Maddox stood at the center of the command holosphere. No alarms blared. They were long deactivated for this level of threat. Causality breach? Captain Vera asked, stepping forward. The relics didn't just fire a weapon, Maddox replied grimly. They've summoned something. Unwritten physics. Something not meant to exist in this era. She tapped a secure panel. Activate primordial. Response. Code. Erebus Black. Full deployment authorization. A deep pulse echoed through the chamber. Earth's final deterrent had been greenlit. Hidden beneath Saturn's northern pole, the chamber opened with tectonic groans. It was not a fleet. It was one ship. If the rest of Earth's dark matter fleet had moved like shadows, this ship was something else entirely, a paradox clad in motionless armor, built from materials that predated carbon. A vessel not designed to win wars, but to end escalation. Codename, ENS Judgment. It launched without heat, without thrust. It didn't move. It relocated, folding out of existence in one space and reappearing above Dravak Null, the Thalrex. Warlords were still watching their displays when the Judgment appeared, a void with an outline. Impossible geometry wrapped in silence. There were no comms, No warnings. There was only the collapse. Entire layers of space peeled away around the relic. The primordial engines spun up, uncoiling pre-logic waveforms designed to erase entire civilizations from both memory and time. It never got the chance. Judgment fired. No weapon, no beam, no explosion. Just an absence, a silencing. Every waveform in the relic's matrix flattened instantly. The engine's core spun once, then shattered in reverse, collapsing into a sphere of raw unbeing. The warlords vanished before they could scream. And then Judgment did something no one expected. It spoke. Let this be the final answer. Back on Erebus Prime, the feed went dark. Maddox stood silent, eyes fixed on the empty grid where Dravak, Null used to be. Status? She asked. A technician responded softly. The primordial threat is nullified. No quantum bleed, no persistence. It's gone, Admiral. All of it, Captain Vera whispered. That's the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. Maddox didn't reply. Instead, she opened a global channel, direct to every known polity, Council, Warband, Pirate Lord, and Silent Observer. Her face, calm and deliberate, appeared across billions of screens. This was not conquest. This was not retribution. This was closure. Earth has endured millennia of threats, silence, and abandonment. No, more. We will not be the last picked bone at the edge of your empires. We are not prey. We are proportionate wrath. She paused, letting the words echo through translation relays across the galaxy. We do not seek to rule, but we will never bow again. From this moment forward, Earth is sovereign, not in name, in truth. Weeks passed, then months, and something strange happened. The galaxy quieted, no new invasions, no unprovoked attacks. Pirate raids dropped by 92%. Interstellar diplomacy surged. Former aggressors scrambled to open cultural exchanges. Even the Watchers remained, respectfully silent. In this strange new equilibrium, Earth didn't expand, but they didn't retreat either. Their fleets vanished back into folds of dark matter space. The Judgment returned to its cradle beneath Saturn and was sealed once more. Peace returned, but it was not the old peace. This was the kind carved by consequence, a peace no one dared disturb. On the outer rim, a small child looked up at the stars from a colony world that would have been vaporized had the Thalrex won. Are the monsters all gone now? She asked. Her father smiled, adjusting her scarf in the wind. No, he said. But now, the monsters are afraid of us. Above them, a star briefly winked. Not in threat, but in respect.